Capital. Basically, I said this is a lagging indicator, and I'm really kind of okay with what's going on here. It seems like many founders can find that $50,000 to $250,000. There's lots of ways to get that. Some government funds, some angels. I think it's kind of more than good enough right now. Question is if we blow up the number of founders, right? So we're going to work on that in a second. I think there's, Jeff Keene's new fund is a great addition. I think that obviously if you need to go kind of $2 to $5 million raise, you're going to have to go out of this town. By the way, my town of 2 million people, you can't raise 2 to 5 million. You got to go to New York, or you got to go to the West Coast. So we're no different. But it's starting. Those outside large West Coast firms in New York are starting to come into my community because of the 10 years of effort. It'll happen. So don't kind of overly freak out and put a lot of time and effort into going like, we need a $50 million venture fund here. Nah, I think that would actually be throwing good money after bad things. There's a part of me that would love to see a kind of a more traditional, like it's been around forever, but a more traditional accelerator. I think there's some positive elements to that. I might be a little biased, so you can kind of push back on me, but that kind of discipline of multiple people applying, going through a selection, finding great companies, using this community to help them out, finding the first customers, getting them to raise money, making that equity-based, and hopefully with a return. There's something that does to the community subtly and nuanced, and so at some point, I think it would behoove you. I don't think we have to do it tomorrow, but I'd like to see a more traditional accelerator. I mentioned earlier VA angels. The notion for everyone is that it become a relatively, useless might be a little bit strong, but not a very kind of active group and wasn't really a place that can serve entrepreneurs, and the members had fallen and all those kinds of things. But I spent a lot of time with Grant, and I've seen a lot of activities. I'm on their mailing list. I'm seeing what's happening. It seems like kind of it's starting to turn back up. All of us can support that. And by the way, there's lots of ways you can support that. If you're an entrepreneur who are way past the angel phase, offer to go spend a dinner with their membership and explain to them what's happening in the world today. Like, support him and support that effort, because an organized angel fund is a great marker, and a well-run one can actually, obviously be really important. Eventually, there might be, we might mature to multiple angel funds, but right now, I'm encouraged by what Grant's doing, and I think there's a role for every one of us to play to help him. Introduce new members to him, take current members, and have coffees with some of the entrepreneurs here, show them what's happening, make them feel comfortable, support, right? Basic support. All right, so to that end, the investor base. I just talked about VA Angels and Grant, helping them tell their story to other people, make introductions. The other one is MetaBridge. Everyone just, and a couple gasps out there. Because I'm going to tell you, there's this kind of like, I always look at the camera before I cuss. There's a bunch of people who are like, the fuck's MetaBridge, right? What the hell does that do for this place? I'm going to tell you what it does. It brings me here. It brings 100 people like me here once a year. Yes, it may not be for too many Kelowna or Okanagan companies because we haven't matured to some of those levels. But the format, as I see it, is they're bringing awareness to 100 people a year about what the hell's happening here. Steve and Sarah have a vision for what that is, and the goal is to create awareness for the region. And if a couple deals get made, great, but there's now 100 people armed with the story that go back to their places, most of them on the West Coast, and tell the story and build connections. Now, I've given them my time with Steve and Sarah over the last year to say, here's a couple new ideas, because that's what I do. I'm like an idea wanker. But like how to build more interactions. But I know a number of people that I talk to who are like, it's not for me, and kind of like, fuck them. Like, we need to stop that, right? I don't, like, if this place is going to mature, like double in size over the next 5 years, maybe that's our goal, there's going to be 10 or 15 of these things that are going to look different, going to be a little bit weird, that aren't all going to be under the umbrella of AO, and some of you guys are going to be running them, and they're going to be positive because there's lots of doors and windows and things that we're all trying to do something. So I want to ask you, if you're not sure what it is, go ask them. In the void of information, don't assume it's some elite, which is what I heard. It's an elite thing for people who are, like, let me just take that shit out of your head right now. I don't know if it's going to have an amazing effect or just a good effect, but I'm going to tell you, I sat there last year and there's 100 really good people, and figuring out Steve and Sarah figured out the right format to get those people engaged. Support it. Even if it's not for you directly, because I'm going to tell you the indirect benefits will be obvious, and have been obvious. This is year 10. You want to do something to help? Even though maybe it's not for you and the invite isn't coming your way, go introduce someone down in the Valley or down in LA or in Seattle that you think would be a good part. Help them bring better people in and more people. It will roll down to you. Everyone get that? Like, that's one of those examples of I'm like, why? Why the hate? Not hate's too strong. You know what I mean? Why the It's hard to do when you don't get it and you don't see it in through your lens. But if this community is going to grow, there's going to be more of these kinds of things. And some of you are going to stand up and be the ones to say, I got an idea. I'm going to spend the time. I think this is a great idea that'll help our community. And even if it's not for me, I'm going to say, great, let me listen. How can I help? At the end of that conversation, I'm going to say, how can I help? Can I use my email list? Can I help you find a speaker? What is it that you can do, that I can do for you? Like, make that your default position, especially in the void of information. Thank you. Just spent 2 weeks in Costa Rica. It's called Salud. How'd I do? Anybody speak Spanish? That's good.